Lights, camera, controversy. NYPD Blue was a police procedural drama series that aired from 1993 to 2005 on ABC. Set in New York City, the show followed the personal and professional lives of the detectives of the fictitious 15th precinct of the NYPD. Over the course of its 12 seasons, it won numerous awards and established itself as one of the most groundbreaking and influential shows in the history of TV. But in the wake of widespread protests against police brutality and racial injustice, some viewers have wondered if these issues were what led to the series' cancellation. Facts First presents Controversies that took NYPD Blue off the air. The death of Austin Majors. Austin Majors rose to fame playing the character Theo Sipowicz, son of Detective Andy Sipowicz. When he joined the cast, he was only 3 years old. Between 1999 and 2004, Majors appeared in 48 episodes of the ABC drama. Afterwards, he went on to appear in a handful of TV shows that aired throughout the aughts, including on ER, and in the 2005 Hercules miniseries, voicing the character Hylius. Other series he showed up on included According to Jim, Desperate Housewives, and NCIS. According to IMDb, Majors' last professional credit was a guest starring role in a 2009 episode of How I Met Your Mother. After leaving Hollywood behind, Majors created a YouTube channel that amassed a modest following. In his free time, he enjoyed activities like camping and fishing. He also attended USC's School of Cinematic Arts, where he studied music production and filmmaking. At the moment, it's unclear what Majors died from, as his cause of death is still being investigated. NYPD Blue caused controversy even before the pilot aired. Even though it's been over a quarter century since it went off the air, many people still look back fondly at NYPD Blue. It might be difficult to imagine that such a critically acclaimed show had any trouble launching, but it did. NYPD Blue caused controversy even before the pilot aired due to its depictions of nudity and strong language. The show's creator, David Milch, and producer, Stephen Bochco, deliberately pushed the boundaries of what was acceptable on network television with scenes that showed partial nudity and contained explicit language. The network initially balked at the show's content, and several religious groups, family organizations, and other affiliates threatened to boycott the show if it aired. Eventually, the show was allowed to air, but not without significant controversy and scrutiny from both viewers and regulators. Despite the backlash, NYPD Blue became a ratings success and aired for 12 seasons. It changed the face of television. NYPD Blue changed TV in several significant ways. First, it ushered in a new era of gritty, realistic police dramas that tackled complex and controversial issues, paving the way for shows like The Wire, The Shield, and Law & Order SVU. Second, it broke new ground in terms of the explicitness of its content, with scenes of partial nudity and strong language that had never before been seen on network television. This helped push the boundaries of what was acceptable on TV and paved the way for more daring and provocative programming. And it launched the careers of several prominent actors, including Dennis Franz and David Caruso, and helped solidify the careers of its creators, Stephen Bochco and David Milch, as major players in the world of television. The FCC wasn't happy. These days, nudity seems to be almost a requirement for TV shows hoping to find success and critical acclaim. But back in 1993, when NYPD Blue made its debut, the world of TV was far more modest. David Milch and the late Stephen Bochco changed the TV landscape by injecting copious quantities of nudity into their procedural cop drama. The series featured sex and skin scenes so often that it eventually caught the attention of the FCC, leading to a long, drawn-out legal battle that no doubt cost the network a small fortune. Nudity and sex were incorporated into the show from its pilot, which involved two fellow cops, John Kelly and Janice LaCalci, played by Caruso and Amy Brenneman, stripping down and getting intimate with each other as strategically placed shadows obscured their bare bodies. Bochco told GQ magazine in 2014 that the amount of sex and nudity featured in the show was no accident. He told the outlet he wanted to have the adults participating in realistic sexual situations. He further added it was a necessity to see shots of various parts of the human anatomy in as much detail as the network censors would allow. Bochco and then president of ABC Bob Iger apparently sat in the network's office sketching naked men and women at various angles while wondering how much they could get away with before having to face the wrath of the FCC. The scene that inevitably brought action from the agency, however, wasn't even explicitly sexual. The offending scene appeared in a 2003 episode fittingly titled Nude Awakening. In it was featured a 7-second shot of Detective Connie McDowell, played by Charlotte Ross, just standing there in her birthday suit. The setup was fairly simple. Ross was standing nude in the bathroom, getting ready to take a shower, when in walked an 8-year-old boy who accidentally caught an eyeful of what he probably shouldn't have, prompting an awkward coming-of-age moment. Strategic camera work obscured most of Ross's nude body. For example, at one point the camera was placed directly behind the young boy's head so that his silhouette obscured her. But in another quick shot, she was still shown nude from behind, exposing her bare buttocks. The scene wrapped with the boy having a look of utter shock on his face as he sheepishly apologized for the intrusion. Ross's character, equally embarrassed, responded by apologizing and telling him it was all okay. While Ross might have thought it was okay, the FCC sure didn't. Content that the FCC deemed to be indecent had to be aired between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., hours when they felt children would be less likely watching. NYPD Blue aired at different times of the evening depending on the time zone, but in many U.S. cities it aired at 9 p.m. After conducting an investigation that concluded in 2008, the FCC proposed an unprecedented indecency fine against the network of $27,000 for each of its 52 affiliates that aired the episode before the 10 p.m. time slot. In total, the network was forced to shell out a staggering $1.4 million in fines. In their findings, the FCC wrote that the scene in question depicted, quote, sexual organs and excretory organs, specifically a woman's buttocks. ABC rejected this argument, however, by arguing that the buttocks was not a sexual organ due to, and we quote, common sense. The case was eventually tossed out by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit in New York in 2011 on the grounds that the FCC's policy on indecency was unconstitutionally vague. Police brutality and the series' inevitable end. In modern times, the Black Lives Matter movement in particular has resulted in many TV viewers and producers reevaluating the depictions of policing in fictional media. Even though NYPD Blue aired in the 90s and early 2000s, it still faced controversy for its depictions of police brutality, particularly during the early seasons. It's worth noting that the beating of Rodney King at the hands of police happened March 3, 1991, just 2 years before NYPD Blue premiered. That meant the public was still very much so concerned about the many abuses of power that law enforcement agencies and individual officers were being accused of at the time. On the flip side, the show was also criticized by some law enforcement agencies and conservative organizations for what they saw as an overly negative portrayal of police officers, while others praised the show for its realistic portrayal of the complexities and challenges of police work. NYPD wasn't actually canceled, but rather ended after 12 seasons in 2005. It was a mutual decision between the creators and network execs. They felt the show had reached its natural conclusion. Now it's time to hear from you. Were you a fan of NYPD Blue? Let us know in the comments section below.